Okay, hi guys, thanks for joining me again. In this video I'm discussing the subject of multi-ball and displaying my second week of doing multi-ball. The idea behind this particular one, the goal behind these multi-ball sessions that I'm doing is basically two things that I'm after. The first thing I'm after is I want to improve my decision making process. And in terms of my decision making process, what I mean is I want to make a faster, better decision on whether I should be blocking the ball when someone's attacking me, or whether I have enough time to actually counter loop or counter drive the ball on the forehand with the inverted, or on the backhand whether I just want to mix up the backhand between blocking the ball or driving, rolling, hitting the ball. Usually on the backhand you have a lot of time because for me the stroke's not very long anyway on the block. And then it's just a matter of deciding when do I want to hit with the pips or roll with the pips. So that's one thing. I want to improve that decision making process with a special focus on if I have a little bit more time and I'm balanced, then rather than just blocking the ball back, having a go at looping the ball back and being aggressive with the return. Which I've found is already starting to pay a few dividends in terms of some of my matches that I've been playing lately in practice matches. The second thing I'm trying to do that you'll see happen a lot here is I've asked Frank, who's my feeder there, I'm asking him to hit the ball a lot into my hip area. And the reason what I'm doing there is it's not so hard to hit a good shot when the ball's coming to your nice power zones on the backhand and the forehand. But what I'm finding is when the ball comes into that right hip, I'm tending to lean from the waist and tilt to my left from the waist, rather than actually use the legs to go to my left, and lean my legs to the left, but keep the torso fairly upright, therefore maintaining balance. So I'm just struggling a little bit with that shot. I'm finding that I'm leaning from the waist a lot, finishing my stroke off balance to my left, finding it then hard to get back. So I'm asking Frank, put a lot of balls into that hip. I'm going to try and get my stance nice and wide so that I can actually just kind of bend the left leg over to my left, keep my torso fairly upright, and that way when I finish my stroke I'm hopefully still quite balanced and I can push back. During the video you'll actually see after the first session Frank and I discussing one particular part of this idea of the wide stance, but we'll come to that in a sec. So those are the two things I'm trying to specifically work on with this multi-ball. And in any training drill, multi-ball included, there should be some sort of purpose to it. There's some goal in mind, and that's what I'm trying to accomplish here in these particular sessions of multi-ball. Those two goals. So let's again have a bit of a look at it.
I reckon we should start off slow, so you can get your footwork organised. Not too slow, I don't mean. Put on a little bit of pressure, but not massive pressure. Because you've got to get it into your muscle memory. You're learning this waist thing.
Okay. I'd say look, you just adjust. If you see I'm struggling, slow down. If you think I'm handling it, speed up, and I'll just leave it to you.
Okay. All right.
That way you can just go. Go adjust.
I'll go with the flow.
Yeah, you go with the flow and just do it as needed. I've got to stop being here. I feel myself I block there. So it's there, and then I'm too close on there. I've got to be more willing to block here.
But you can lean in anyway.
Yeah.
You can still block and touch the ball the same, but just lean in.
I think I've got this thing there now to block it with the pips. You try and take it off the bounce and drop it short. And that's not really what I'm after. I just want to put it back or occasionally roll it. I'm not trying to double bounce it.
No.
I just got to be willing to hit it there. And then I've got time to and to twiddle and to wind up.
Yeah.
Okay, wide. They want to be wide. If you see me narrowing, just give me a yell, but I'm going to try and stay.
I think that's what was wrong with you over sitting against me when I was chopping. You was too close. Too close.
Too close to the table, in fact, too close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the key is if I'm there so that my legs are straight, my legs are straight, I can't push. If I can bend my legs, then I can go forward. So the key for me is not to go straight.
When I look at the big of your shoulders, you're almost too shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, hens and all that go wide, but they don't go straight. They always can bend. So I need to go wide enough for them to bend. But then when I want to go, I can do that. Yeah. I've got to maintain bend.
Now, the essence of what Frank and I were talking about there, after my first run through of multi-ball and before this second run through of multi-ball, is that in order for me to allow myself on those balls to my hip, to try and allow myself to lean using my legs, basically bending the knees and keeping my torso upright, to allow me to go to that left, I spread my legs out very, very wide. Frank was saying almost 2 shoulder widths, but essentially very wide. Now, the problem I found with that is when I went that wide, it's actually very, very tough to bend the knees in any fashion, because your legs then get under intense. It's really tough pressure to hold you up, basically, when your legs are that wide. And what I also found is because of that, I tended to hold my legs very straight without a lot of bend in the knees, because that way I could lock my knees and it was obviously easier to support myself. What that does though is once you widen out your legs a lot and lock the knees, you now lose all ability to push from side to side. And towards the end of the first run through of the multi-ball, you'll see, if you go and have another quick look, you'll see there are occasions where Frank puts the ball to my forehand, and instead of shuffle stepping, I just basically reach over without moving my legs at all. And it's not because I didn't want to move my legs, it's just because I found I had no way to push off. I couldn't push, so I was kind of left stuck jumping up and down with no ability to push sideways at all, and virtually stuck in place. So what we were talking about is, look, we thought about it and said, well, look, I'm getting stuck there. I think maybe the legs are too wide, and I've got to narrow it down just a little bit so that I can actually maintain a bend in the knees. If I maintain the bend in the knees, I can now push off left and right. We were debating also, if I do that, can I still lean to my left using my legs and maintain the upright torso? And it kind of felt like I could. So we were going to do a second run through of multi-ball. This time I'm going to try and keep my legs not quite so narrow, not quite so wide, maintain the bend in them, and see whether that then allows me to still push left and right and also lean for those balls to the hip. And this is the result.
less balancing, man. Here we go.
So what's happening is when you're hitting, your back's coming here instead of the
Yeah, you're right. Feel it.
Now, Frank stopped me at that point in the multi-ball with still several balls remaining. The reason Frank stopped me is that he could see something I was doing that I wasn't able to kind of really see at the time, being the person doing the training. What he saw is he saw that I was actually, although I had my knees and legs pretty much what we were trying to do, I had them in the right positions and I could push side to side, I had allowed my torso, my, basically my upper body, I had allowed it to become vertical and I'd straightened up from the waist up. I'd lost my little bit of forward lean, and what that was doing was it was affecting my timing and a little bit of my balance, and throwing my swing angle off during my swing. So what Frank did was, rather than keep feeding me while I'm playing essentially the wrong technique, he pulled me up and just said, look, this is what you're doing wrong, let's go and then pick it up from there, which is a good thing to do rather than just reinforcing bad habits. It's also a good example of the difference between having a feeder who knows good technique and simply using a robot. Where under pressure with a robot, I might have hit another 100 balls doing that, reinforcing bad technique. Whereas with Frank, he's picked me up straight away, and now I can go finish the exercise, getting back to proper technique and seeing, which is obviously going to do me more good than doing continuing to do it incorrectly.
Lean forward. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I can feel the difference.
Because I think when this happens, with that, you lose contact, you don't get the spin.
No, because you can start to.
Yeah.
I can't block that. Yeah, no, you're right. I'll do another session after the next one.
But that, the knees, you've got to have your knees bent over the fan.
So in this multi-ball session, I've done 2 lots spaced far enough apart for me to get my breath back. Then Frank did about 7 to 10 minutes of an exercise for him, and then I came back and did another 2 sessions of the multi-ball. This early in the season, where basically I haven't done a lot of aerobic fitness work yet, comparing to earlier videos in the year, you can see that because I haven't been training, I'm a bit heavier than what I was, so I was getting definitely a good sweat up from the exercise. But what I found is in these particular sessions, I'm finding the multi-ball very useful in allowing me to work that weak area very intensely in a short space of time, and more importantly, it really pressures the decision making. In a drill situation, say even against a good player, a good player might be able to pressure me in that playing area 2 or 3 times, and then he would miss the ball or I would miss the ball, the pressure would be off and we start again. In multi-ball, it's constant pressure because you're constantly getting another ball, another ball, another ball, and Frank can put the ball where he wants, wherever he sees I'm struggling, and he can make it harder if it needs to be harder, easier if it needs to be easier. And so what it's doing is, in a much shorter space of time, I'm getting much more practice at making those decisions of whether I have to block, whether I have to loop, and making those, getting that practice at leaning over without leaning my torso. So multi-ball, although it's very hard work physically, can be quite demanding, especially when you've got someone like Frank working you hard. it really does allow you to accomplish a lot in a much shorter space of time. I guess the downsides of multi-ball is that the person who's doing the feeding, well, such as Frank here, Frank's not getting any training during that time. He's doing feeding. Whereas in a drill, you both would be getting some training. But, and of course, physically being quite intense, you may be limited in how much you can perform. I know that basically I did 4 run-throughs of about 50 balls, I think Frank said. I didn't count them, but of however many balls you see me doing there. I really didn't fancy doing any more that day in my current state of fitness, which is not great, and I'll have to build that up a bit. So yeah, much more intense, much more quickly, but physically a little bit more demanding. And today, in the next day, after this is basically the day after, my legs do feel that a little bit more than ordinary play. So I think it's one of these cases where it's very useful. You can accomplish a lot in a short time, but you also have to be careful not to overuse it, because you can really batter your body a lot, and also it can then leave you quite tired for the rest of the session. You may not be able to perform the rest of your training session very well. So you have to be sensible in its usage. But this multi-ball, this is what I'm doing at this stage of the season in multi-ball. I'll probably add more as I go, but I'm using it to work on 2 specific areas. When I'm happy with that performance, I'll either move on to more complex drills, or I'll pick some other area that I think needs work, and I'll start working on that, and basically adapt as I go. But it's a fairly good demonstration of where my multi-ball skills, where I haven't done anything for a long time, basically where I really am at present.